What does Camp Frontier mean to me? It's as important, almost, as my family. There's nothing more important than my God and my family. But Camp Frontier comes a fairly close third. When you devote a lot of your life toward its development, when you see it grow from year to year to year, and fortunately I've seen it over the 50 that were here. Golly, I'm an old man. It becomes a part of you.
Baby, it's time to leave. We got plans and we got dreams. We got a long way to go. Pack up all of your emotions, all your faith and devotion. We're gonna need it, this I know.
When the council projected the number of youth that we were going to potentially have, they saw the need that we were very much going to outgrow Kamiakonda. And because of that need, they wanted a facility that had expandable opportunities. They bought all of the property at the Pioneer Scout Reservation, a major capital campaign that occurred here in the Toledo area.
I was just newly on the board when that property was purchased. And I remember there was not unanimity about that. There was controversy over whether we could afford to do that and whether or not we really needed a big camp like that. And I think Paul Reinbold, who was the executive at the time, was really important in making that thing go forward. Paul believed in it, had to get it done, and he was the one that I really worked closely with.
Oh gosh, my dad was very involved in the development of the camp, so we were out there doing things even before the camp was open.
Would you believe we bought almost 1,100 acres for something like $150,000? I mean, unbelievable.
The vision that the council had were 5 camps on the entire property. The membership declined. The expandable growth and exponential growth did not occur. And therefore we remained as one camp until they expanded on the north side of Lake McNichol. And at that point in time, we made one camp, kind of 1 1/4 camps as to what the original design was. And they developed one camp. That was Camp Frontier.
The whole development process, the whole construction process was really a lot of fun.
Well, when I came here in September '68, the main road was back to the second lake. And that was about it. There wasn't any buildings or anything. The first winter I spent putting in water lines and electric. Everything's buried, so it was a lot of trenching and building the latrines. So that basically took me through the first winter. A guy by the name of Andy Nixon was the contractor, and they built all the buildings, did the house and the maintenance complex, and then I think they probably started with the mess hall and reservational headquarters and so on. And they worked all winter on it, yeah.
Paul and I went around and looked at various camps around the country, and we were taken by the camp at St. Louis. We kind of patterned the whole flow and everything at Pioneer after that camp, which was focused on patrol cooking and a lot of scout leadership within each campsite.
Interestingly enough, the camp was a cook-only facility. The dining hall was not built for campers. The dining hall was built for the staffs that would run all of the various camps.
Yes, originally that's all it was going to do was feed the staff. The troops are all going to do their own cooking. I think when they came in on Sunday, we fed them that Sunday evening meal.
And in the mid-70s, when Camp Miaconda was closed, the council realized that they needed to meet the need of campers from a dining hall facility, and so the dining hall was converted to open to the general campership.
When I first 1969, when I attended as a second-year scout, it was muddy. The biggest thing that comes to mind was muddy.
Well, the first year, we didn't have all this grass. The roads were gravel, and it was a wet spring. So kids would walk through the muddy fields, walk across the road, pick up the big stones, and then go into like the dining hall and the different buildings. And we used to take scoop shovels and scoop the stones off the floors, you know, but it was muddy.
Barren. There were no grass on any of the property. The entire front of camp and all of the shores of the lakefront were nothing but mud. The trails were nothing but mud because the water lines had just recently been cut and vegetation was not able to come back onto the property. And then lots of opportunity for service projects for the boys. They probably got tired of planting pine trees and mulching grass.
I remember lots of mud.
There was no, fancy amphitheater campfire center. The campfires were held at the chapel.
Opening and closing campfires were down at the chapel. When there were a couple stone pillars, and the campfires were built on top of those, and that provided most of the illumination.
But back in those days, we fit in the chapel area. We didn't have 500 kids and leaders in camp a week. The chapel was highly adequate for the number of people down there to hold a campfire, have worship services, or whatever.
Well, in the 80s, when we had summer camp staff, we were probably dealing with, I'm going to guess, around 1,000 to 1,200 total campers for the summer. So that would give us weeks anywhere from 150 to 250 kids. We had a staff of 30 to 35 in that time period, and I would say it worked for us because we were so busy as staff members, we really didn't realize how busy we were and didn't ever have time to sit down and think, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What are we doing here? I would say from that to now, where yes, we have a whole lot more campers, up to, we'll say 400 to 550 a week, but we now have a staff of 100 or so. So while it's more campers, you have a lot more hands to be able to help get things done.
Well, the program didn't have the options that this program has. The merit badge offering, my guess would be about half what it is today. The shooting facilities, there was one rifle range, and the archery was makeshift compared to what it is today.
It was a smaller list of activities. It was pretty much, back in my scout age time, pretty much traditional scouting. It was the outdoor skills, watercraft, shooting sports. Like I said, it wasn't even until '74 they had the dedicated handicraft. So it was pretty much just the scouting skills and the things that you could do best at camp, because you had a lake and you had a river and you had an archery range and you had a rifle range. But that was pretty much everything was circled around. Pretty much the basic scouting skills with a really good place to do them.
Oh, well, they're doing a lot more merit badges nowadays, and it gets better and better every year. They keep adding to, the buildings are nicer, and equipment-wise, I think it's one of the best outfitted camps that I know of.
The first year, we didn't have a schedule. You had a merit badge midway. This was 96. You had a merit badge midway on Friday and Saturday night, Sunday night, and you signed people up for merit badges and scheduled them as you could. Camp-wide games in 96 were all Friday afternoon. There was nothing, no merit badges afternoon on Fridays. Even when we had it scheduled, there were no merit badges after 3, just one session after lunch. There were none of the evening activities. There wasn't anything to do. Troops had to make their own.
It's changed with the amount of buildings that are also on the property. The original concept was to be very primitive. Very few buildings, lots of canvas to house the various departments and so forth.
In 96, the handicraft area was a tent next to the trading post. And when I did my first year on staff in 2001, that was the second year that the handicraft building was in use.
Probably the biggest thing that has changed over the years is we went from a couple of dining flies and picnic tables for the ecology area, and it moved around in those early years.
The ecology program, when I started, was in an open-sided shed, and they had a large dining fly jury-rigged out of the back end towards the lake.
And over the years, as scouting has changed, as needs have changed, as the world has changed, we've grown to a facility that is really marvelous and magnificent with its holdings.
There used to be 1 or 2 specialty programs, and now there's just seems like dozens of specialty programs, all sorts of trainings offered, lots of older scout opportunities. Everything has just flourished and blossomed and continues to grow each year.
We've added things to the program across the years, but the quality of the program, I think, has always remained the same. We've added new things every year, new merit badges, new activities, new open area stuff, but the common core customer service aspect and the attention to detail, for me at least, has always been there.
Another thing that I remember is there were only 5 weeks of camp. One of those 5 weeks, right in the middle, was for older scouts only, so younger scouts really only had 4 weeks of camp.
In the mid-aughts, we were down 1 point to 5 weeks, probably early aughts, and came back up to 6. And the demand was such we went back up to 7.
Oh my gosh, along with that, 2006 we had 5 weeks of campers.
Yeah.
And then we've added to 6 weeks of campers, then we've added to 7 weeks, and now we also do the Weeblos program 2 times during the 7th week. So that's a huge change.
Yeah, I suppose that.
It went from like a month and a half you were here to like 2 months or more.
And I do remember in aquatics, we would say, oh, we're gonna be all day. We've got 250 scouts to take through swimming, swim checks. And this week we said, we don't know what we're gonna do. We've only got 350 this week. It's so strange to think of only 350 and then stop and think about, wait, 10 years ago, that was a large number.
We didn't have the 30 and 40 member troops coming up to camp. Most of the time there was somebody in every campsite, but you know, a big troop might have been 24 people. And now every week there's 24s, 36s, you know, big troops.
Anyhow, the whole thing has developed into the program that we have at camp today, which is really quite remarkable. And it's, you know, it kind of used as a model around the country for how summer camp should be.
Glenda Bowman was the camp director at the time. She wanted a gateway for camp, and so we had to do it cheap. So we went out and cut down trees out in the woods, and we drilled some holes, and we set some really big trees to hold the gateway up. And that first year, it was I think it was just a pole on either side and 2 poles across the top, and it said PSR on it. and that was it.
There literally were two, 6-inch trunks that had been planted in the ground, and they had a cross piece.
And then the next year, I think Karen Thiel was the camp director, and we added the torches to that. And I remember Glenda come back and saying, "Why didn't you do that when I was camp director?" I'm like, and we did what we could. So that lasted probably, I don't know, 6, 7 years, 8 years, and we needed to replace it just because the trees were getting rotten and so on. So at that point, we decided, you know what, we don't want to be doing this every 7 or 8 years. Let's do it right, and we spent money on telephone poles and did it with treated lumber. So it's been there a good while now. It's like that. It's just like the amphitheater. It's that iconic "we're here" kind of a look, and it's just something that you remember. And I like to get it in pictures all the time because you know where you're at. You can't any place else. You can take pictures of trees in a campsite and you know you're camping, but when you take a picture of the gateway or the amphitheater, you know what camp you're in. There's no questions.
I remember the first time I saw the gateway that exists now, because I was a scoutmaster by then. So again, Lord, they were scrambling to get the camp open, let alone put up a gateway in 1968. So I remember driving it thinking, wow, this place is growing up,
Scouting, to my mind, is a way of building leaders.
I've been a scoutmaster pretty much all my adult life. We've always been out there trying to put a good program together for the scouts to come learn things. And I think the scouting program has been in the best position to make itself available to any person.
Everybody's got their place in scouting where they can choose what they're interested in and go with that.
But scouting, we take you as you are, and you can pick up as much of it as you want, or you can just come and have fun with the parts of it that you like. And if it's just the camping part, advancement really doesn't do anything for you, you're still learning, you're still in the patrol method, you're still watching all the other leaders around you do stuff, the boy leaders. And I really think that scouting puts out a program that's accessible to anybody.
And I'm sure every generation says this, but the people of today have so many things going on in their lives, and there's so many different options for them to go and different paths to follow, that scouting is going to take that same kid, that whether it be born this year or born 100 years ago, and it's going to put him back in the outdoors so that he can actually physically learn some things just by looking and touching and feeling and seeing. And I don't know that you get that everywhere else. You're not going to get it at home in the house, and you may not get it at school.
There's a lot that we get to do out here in rural Northwest Ohio that you can't get in the city.
And it's so much fun just to hear scouts going around camp being teenage boys, running around like crazy people and just doing the things that teenage boys are supposed to do out here.
I believe that PSR specifically helps scouts to become more independent users of the skill. They get more chance to practice.
And I credit the Boy Scouts for providing an environment where young kids can learn lessons, where they can make mistakes and fail without it being a critical loss in their life. You can recover so easily from, okay, if you don't pass a merit badge the first time you go for it, so what?
But I think for the entire nation and scouting across the world, it's a beneficial program for instilling leadership values and instilling those common core values in every generation to come. It's very hard to teach and very hard to show those leadership values of kindness and those points of the Scout Law. And I think that that's something that's not necessarily it's something you don't see a whole lot in society anymore. And I think that this organization has held on to those values for so long, And I think that that length of time and that tradition that they've held on to for such a long time is why it's so powerful and so emotional to people, and why they continue scouting for the future.
Oh, they're all fond memories at PSR.
Camp is just a property. It's literally a patch of trees with a nice river going through it. It's got, you know, some very pretty things. It's got a nice lake. But to me, you can get that at a lot of different places. You can go to your local metro park, you can go to your local city park, and you can get wildlife, trees, beautiful views, nice sunsets. And while all of that accompanies, you know, the whole camp atmosphere, I think what makes that specific plot of land so special is what happens there between people. It's truly the program and truly the people and truly the memories and what make it special.
I think it's always been the staff at Pioneer. Because that was what I liked the most about my staff years, was the people I worked with and working together with them to just make sure week after week after week ran well, the people that came had fun, and we had fun. And I think that was part of it, is I had fun every summer I was there.
Camp Frontier is defined by the staff. It's the culture and the excitement and everything that the staff does to make it a great place.
When the camp first started, the very first camp staff had 50 staff members, because the council knew there were lots and lots of projects that were going to need to be completed. But after that year, it kind of pared down to about 35.
I don't know the exact number of what we were offering in the 80s, but I would guess it was probably about 30 merit badges. And you had a total of 30 staff. Now, we'll say 8 or 10 of them were behind the scenes, you know, trading post / dining hall or whatever.
Yeah, now it's what, 115 or 16, 20, something. Yeah, it's big. But again, we also weren't trying to provide program for, you know, 500 scouts and their leaders, and we also weren't trying to deliver 80 merit badges.
Major difference. And in fact, there was a reunion about 10 years ago, and a lot of my friends who I used to work with came back, and they were amazed at the numbers of staff that were there.
It's great because there's so many talents of the different staff members, people with, when you have 100 different people, there's so many unique gifts that everyone brings.
Well, again, the growth has happened because for two reasons. One, the Boy Scout program has expanded in its time. And the other reason is because the Pioneer program, the camp program, has expanded with it. It's just the success that the place has, and the continuous challenge to make the service better forces you to get into new expanded programming.
The number of the merit badges have changed. The campers have changed. We're getting campers from a much broader area of the country than we were initially, and certainly many, many more of them.
We've built up on campers. We've added campers, and we've had more campers, more leaders coming to camp, and so we've increased our staff in our commissary area to meet the needs of our campers. And we've increased merit badge class times too. We may offer something 5 times a day because we just need that much time.
And in your personal opinion, what qualities would make an excellent staff?
First of all is a real commitment to hard work, because it's hard work. It's up early and go to bed late, and just a lot of hours, and it takes stamina, and it takes an understanding of what you're there for.
An excellent Camp Frontier staff member would definitely have to be someone who is there because they already love Scouts.
Somebody with enthusiasm for sure. Somebody willing to get up there and do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Cheerful, that they're alert and aware of the needs of other people.
Giving. A camp staff member who serves at Camp Frontier has to have a giving spirit, has to have a serving spirit. because servant leaders are the best leaders in terms of leading by example.
You get people who are doing things they like. Watching youth learn is a great experience, great thing, always has been.
That learning how to serve somebody else, learning how to take care of somebody else and make them happy is ultimately what makes you happy.
All in all, I think no matter what, your position is on camp staff and what you're doing, I think the best part about the camp staff atmosphere is the family-oriented atmosphere that we promote there.
At the end of the day, at the end of the year, that's really what matters is yeah, you've got all this other stuff that you've done over the year, but some of the relationships that you make with other staff or campers or scoutmasters, that's what's really neat.
Frontier has carried on that same thing now with their emphasis on staff and the customer service. It's been make sure you're there for that scout, and it was even back then.
And I think every year they just keep on improving, and your reputation grows.
The single most important thing you have to have is a good staff that becomes a team and becomes one big team. And I think that's really the key part of all of camp and Camp Frontier, is that it works together as a team.
We've been able to last so long because the emphasis is not on who people are as staff. It's not on we're all Erie Shores Council. The emphasis is on we're trying to provide an opportunity for each person who comes to camp to reach their maximum potential, to challenge themselves toward a goal that they have set. And as each of those goals is met, there is a fond memory built in someone's heart, and it brings them back year after year after year.
We've had, there was two individuals that in 1996 died on the way home from camp. And they're actually the two that we got the stars from on our logo. And that was Ted Moroz and Autumn Jankowiak. And all I can think is that Ted in high school must have been the class clown, because at camp he was not only the class clown, but he was also like, I don't want to say an instigator, but he was the life of the staff. He was just gung-ho, Mr. Enthusiasm. Every minute he had, he was singing, dancing. Any place he walked, he was singing. And I'm not going to say that he's the start of that whole family by any means, but he surely built family with staff. And when the two of them died during that last week of camp, it was rough on the whole camp staff, and years after was still rough. But the two stars in our logo are for the two of them, and have now become to symbolize any other staff that have died over the years. But those two specifically, because they died during the summer on their way home from camp, it was a rough year for everybody.
Bill Youngs. Who can forget Bill Youngs?
Bill had started working camp staff the very first year.
How cool is it for somebody who can say that they worked at camp every single year since it opened?
Bill spent a lot of his time and resources in camp, doing this and that. I think he was a cook at one time. He was a business manager. We had a lot of fun with Bill.
Bill was a quiet giver. He would give you this gruff exterior and make people think that he was standoffish, when in reality he was the most giving individual and the nicest person you could have ever wanted to know and call your friend.
He would bellyache about anything, But then when you needed it, he would have it right there for you. And he'd give you the shirt off his back if he needed to make sure it happens.
He'd always be driving this four-wheeler around, inspecting camp, making sure nothing changed.
When he was still living, he would have been the person that I would have went to with any question about back in the day. I mean, he was such a wealth of knowledge, such a wealth of knowledge. He knew so much, and and he liked talking about it in his own sarcastic way.
I stayed in touch with him and saw him off and on, in and out of camp, the whole time since the 70s.
It's something that, is missing, and, occasionally I'll be working on different things at camp, and, just think like, it'd be really cool if Bill was here to see this. He would really have appreciated this. We said that a lot about the trading post remodel. The trading post was always something that was kind of in his heart, and we remodeled it, and I don't think he ever got to see the final product. And that's something that I think he really would have appreciated and really would have enjoyed looking at. And I hope so. Or he would have complained. I don't know if he would have complained about it or not, but yeah. But I think he would have enjoyed it, for sure. So.
I mean, it started with people planting trees. Here, a lot of the trees were just planted to start the camp. So how much camp has changed in 50 years? I mean, it's gonna happen like incrementally, a step at a time. But I think it's gonna keep changing in the next 50. New programs, more campsites, however it goes, it's gotta keep changing and adapting as the scouting program changes and adapts.
Well, every year we seem to try to top what we did the year before, so it just gets bigger and bigger and better and better.
Well, I hope it continues to improve and do better. I would like to see more programs designed to get people in depth into areas, regardless whether they provide merit badge.
And I think it's something that I see is the kids who were here in the early days, their kids are coming now, and that's kind of a round robin deal.
There are a couple of families where the father was either on staff or an older scout, and now the sons and daughters are scouts. They're not Cubs.
The addition of females to this program is a huge step for this program, and you can just about imagine the opportunities and the challenges that come with that. So we've got to perfect that, but how exciting it is to add half the population to your opportunity to serve. I mean, that's fantastic.
The things that I can do is I can make sure that I show people appreciation for the scouting program and what we do there. And if I can relay that in some way and make somebody else appreciate it as much as I do, hopefully they can do that in return and continue to do that throughout generations to make sure that there's always a group of people who care enough about the property to, one, make sure that it stays there, and two, continue to provide ideas and programming and different things to keep it going.
In life, you're either moving forward or you're falling backwards. You never stay put. So if you're not moving forwards, you're not going the right direction.
We can't just keep doing the same thing. They'll always love camping. The basic core, the COSA core of camping, hiking, will always be there.
Upcoming project is our new handicrafts building. That's getting started right now. And that's another quartermaster-sized building. It's a 2-story. We'll have tornado shelter in the basement, some more showers, and plenty of teaching space. And we'll provide bathrooms for outdoor skills also. So it'll be right there on that corner.
The Camp Frontier Legacy.
I think it's leaving those memories that when you walk back in there, it's like you're happy to be there. It's like this was meant so much to me as a kid, growing up through the program, that even as an adult, you walk back in and you're going, I'm glad to be back here again.
When you start talking about legacy, I think To me, you're talking about something that has ended, and it's what does it leave behind? Well, it hasn't ended. It's just beginning. That's the beauty of it. This is a program that has a long life if it's well done. And so they're still building its reputation and earning its legacy.
The Camp Frontier legacy for me is a legacy of strengthening the individual and strengthening family. We're now 50 years old. That means great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and youth have all had the Camp Frontier experience. As a result, there's that intergenerational sharing. We've all had that experience, but maybe it's different. And it allows for further conversation and further development of family goals and principles.
But that's honestly, that right there is why we have a legacy, because we have been successful at creating a program of our own that gives people those great feelings at the end of the day and things that they'll remember for the rest of their lives.
I'm so impressed by what's going on there today, especially today, this emphasis on customer service. There's nothing that beats an enthusiastic staff that makes people feel welcome and jumps on problems and gets them fixed right now.
I don't know that you can put camp in one word. It's an experience.
A place of solitude and retreat anytime. The trees are hauntingly quiet. If we listen, we can almost make out the echoes of songs sung around a campfire, smell the smoke and food cooking for dinner. Hear the sound of a paddle splashing as a canoe glides down the St. Joseph River. Our days at Camp Pioneer may not have changed the trees or trails, lakes or wildlife here, but we are the better, wiser, healthier, and happier for having had the opportunity to watch the scouts, counselors, and scoutmasters learn the skills, experience the sports, gain their awards, and have the fun of living totally outdoors among the beauties of Pioneer.